This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
ECOWAS mediators meet leaders of Mali's military coup. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to visit Sudan as the two countries look to normalize ties. And flooding of several lakes in Kenya raises fears of an ecological disaster. Hello and welcome to Africa Live on CGTN with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead this hour. French champions Paris Saint-Germain take on their German counterparts Bayern Munich for the ultimate European prize. Leaders of Mali's military coup have met a delegation from the West African regional bloc ECOWAS. The delegation was led by former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. This Saturday meeting in the capital Bamako was scheduled for over an hour, but only lasted 20 minutes. The 15-member bloc has taken a hard line on the overthrow of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta. ECOWAS shut land and air borders with Mali and stopped financial flows into the country. After the meeting, the ECOWAS delegation was allowed to meet the ousted Malian president. Nigeria's Jonathan confirmed that Keïta is doing well. ECOWAS and junta leaders are yet to comment on the outcome of the talks. Well, the coup in Mali has once again cast a spotlight on military intervention in politics and governance in Africa. Before the junta ousted Mali's president earlier this week, many thought military coups on the continent were a thing of the past. CGTN's Deji Badmus reports.
They're supposed to protect their country's sovereignty and territorial integrity. But in the past, Africa's militaries have taken center stage in matters of governance. And often when these interventions happen, the soldiers and their civilian collaborators justify their actions as trying to right the supposed wrongs of the elected government they topple.
No, there cannot be any justification. Everybody, we know that a military coup is an aberration. It's anathema to democratic governance.
They are not trained to govern. By training, their training is to kill. Quelling insurrections and all the rest. Unlike the police, who are trained for civil events. Now, for that same category of persons to take over the reins of, governance in a state, what democratic experience do they have?
Experts often blame military interventions as a reason for Africa's weak democratic institutions and poor development.
If you look at Nigeria critically, today the military is fighting Boko Haram. But look at it very carefully. The military takeover of this country actually plunged this country to where it is today. For me, they've done more harm than good. Because when you look at the trend of events and the number of years they've been in position, the kind of activities that took place throughout, you discover that much of the problems, much of the crises we have in Nigeria could be in a way attributed to military takeovers. Now, the same thing is now being played out in Mali.
But many military interventions like the one in Mali enjoy the support of the citizens. Critics say the Mali military is capitalizing on a wave of discontent against the elected government.
The democratic institutions in these countries are not strong enough yet. And so you find out that the very few countries where we have not had military coup are countries with stronger democratic ethos and institutions. So that gives you an idea. It also gives you an idea of the decline of the so-called democratization of the African political space.
The latest coup in Mali is the second in just 8 years. There's been strong condemnation from West African leaders. Regional bloc ECOWAS has imposed sanctions and threatened trade restrictions.
The reputation of the international community is at stake over this matter, whether it is the level of the United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, but more so ECOWAS because that is the regional organization that Mali belongs to. So ECOWAS has no choice than to tighten the political and diplomatic pressure on the military dictatorship in Mali.
How ECOWAS deals with the situation in Mali could affect how future military coups in Africa might play out. Deji Badmus, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is to visit Sudan in the coming days, and that's according to a Sudanese government official. Sudan has been normalizing relations with the United States since the overthrow of former leader Omar al-Bashir in April last year. But the North African country is still seeking to be removed from a list of countries the U.S. considers state sponsors of terrorism. U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo is also due to visit Israel and the United Arab Emirates this week. We turn to a grim milestone from the pandemic. The global death toll has surpassed 800,000. The number has doubled since June the 6th, according to a tally from Johns Hopkins. Over 23 million people have been infected globally. Latin America accounts for more than half of the world's deaths. Cases have been climbing in Western Europe, particularly Spain, Italy, Germany, and France, and that's sparking fears of a second wave. In Africa, the Centers for Disease Control has said that the continent is now flattening the curve. China says it is giving experimental coronavirus vaccines to high-risk patients. The confirmation comes from Zheng Xiongwei, the leader of the Vaccine Research and Development Team at the National Health Commission. He says the decision conforms to China's vaccine management law. Sinopharm obtained the UAE clinical trial approval on June the 23rd, and so far the number of people enrolled has exceeded 20,000 and the effectiveness is under further observation. Peru, Morocco and Argentina have also signed up for phase 3 clinical trials.
Nearly 6 months after the first cases of COVID-19 were reported in Latin America, a development that could signal a major step towards ending the pandemic. The coronavirus vaccine developed by Oxford University and AstraZeneca will cost between $3 and $4 a dose for Latin Americans. Argentina will produce it, Mexico will package and distribute it, and the foundation belonging to Carlos Slim, Latin America's wealthiest man, will finance it. Up to 250 million doses will be made for Latin America, with the exception of Brazil, which has its own agreement, and production is already underway, awaiting its approval. The vaccine is at an advanced stage of testing. South Africa, with 600,000 cases, is one of the countries participating. Argentine Pablo Berra has lived in Johannesburg for 12 years and is one of the 2,000 volunteers testing the vaccine.
At first, here in South Africa, we were told it was just going to be one injection, but they discovered that just one injection was not enough. They saw it generated antibodies in 91% of people who received it, not 100%. So they decided to administer a second injection, and they found 100% of the people who received the vaccine generated antibodies.
This vaccine is expected to be ready for early 2021 and can't come soon enough for one of the regions hardest hit by the coronavirus outbreak. Latin America has now overtaken Europe as the region with the most deaths related to COVID-19.
As well as producing the Oxford University vaccine, Argentina is running trials with a vaccine developed by the company Pfizer, and on Friday announced that it will test phase 3 of China's vaccine produced by Sinopharm Group.
There is a possibility, a glimmer of hope, that with this vaccine, or many vaccines, hopefully there are many, we can stop this pandemic. If not, if we do not find a vaccine, it's going to be very difficult for a long period of time.
Nerves are frayed in countries like Argentina, which saw protests this week against the government, domestic politics mixing with anger over the ongoing quarantine. Latin America remains one of the epicentres of the coronavirus outbreak, but worldwide progress in the testing and production of vaccines offers hope. Joel Richards for CGTN in Buenos Aires.
Burkina Faso is now making use of its temperature sensing robot donated by the Chinese embassy. It is meant to help Ouagadougou International Airport combat the spread of COVID-19. The robot's mission is to strengthen health security measures within the airport terminal. It can take the temperatures of up to 6 people simultaneously at a distance 1 to 5 meters. Burkina Faso is one of the few countries in Africa to be equipped with the device. Valued at an estimated $7,000, the robot was donated before the reopening of air borders at the beginning of this month. To date, the country has recorded over 1,200 confirmed cases and 55 deaths.
Controlling the temperature of 10 people at a time during busy periods makes it easy for us to relieve passenger congestion. We sincerely thank the People's Republic of China.
It is a company from Shenzhen that made its contribution by donating this robot for free to Burkina Faso. I think this robot will improve working conditions at Ouagadougou International Airport very well.
I think that this robot is much more practical. When I arrived, I wasn't expecting to see such a machine at Ouagadougou International Airport because in Dakar, the health workers use thermoflashes to take our temperatures.
In Kenya, doctors at public hospitals run by the Nairobi County government have gone on strike. The doctors have a raft of complaints, including delayed wages and inadequate protective gear when dealing with suspected COVID-19 cases in hospitals. CGTN's Wilkista Nyabwa has more.
It has been 5 months since Kenya reported its first case of COVID-19. In the face of the rising number of patients, the country has put in place a raft of measures to contain the spread of the disease. But a strike by doctors working in most public hospitals in Nairobi threatens to derail the progress. The strike started on Friday after talks between the National Doctors Union and the Nairobi Metropolitan Service, which runs health services in the city, collapsed. The over 300 doctors say they are taking part in the strike because of salary delays, poor quality and inadequate personal protective equipment, insufficient isolation wards, and lack of medical insurance covers.
Part of the terms and conditions of employment is that the employer will not only pay you your salary, but also give you a conducive environment to work. Part of the conducive environment is giving you a comprehensive medical cover for you, your family, your close family members, because you are at risk and also they are at risk, so you have to take care of them. So we have not been having a medical cover since 1st of July.
The strike also comes at a time when the head of the government-run Kenya Medical Supplies Agency has been suspended over allegations that the agency procured low-quality items and inflated the prices of others.
We have been getting low-quality PPEs, especially from KEMSA. Some of them are substandard that you have to wear too.
However, the action does not affect private hospitals in Nairobi or public ones run by the national government. Talks between the two sides are expected to resume as they seek a speedy resolution in the face of a pandemic. Wilkista Nyabwa, CGTN.
And still in Kenya, water levels in 2 of the country's lakes in the Rift Valley have risen so rapidly this year that 2 of the swollen bodies of water are now close to joining together. There are fears the lakes could contaminate each other, threatening the ecological system and livelihoods of local communities. CGTN's Robert Nagila now reports.
Murray Roberts is a worried man.
All our offices, stores, workshops, etc. have now been completely flooded.
Rising water levels at Lake Baringo, a freshwater lake in the Rift Valley, is threatening his life's work in tourism and posture development.
Beginning January 2020, it's come up over 10 feet and it's coming up about 1 inch a day.
The swollen lakes expanded inland several kilometers, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. And as if that was not enough, a looming ecological disaster may be on the horizon. South of Lake Baringo lies another lake whose levels have also been rising, Lake Bogoria. The difference is it's a saltwater body. To give you an idea of just how high the water levels have risen, the lake's moved in about 7 kilometers inland, submerging what used to be a road. Offices in the background, and behind it, an airstrip and farmland. The warden at Lake Bogoria says it's pushing northwards towards Lake Baringo.
Our normal distance between Lake Bogoria and Baringo used to be around 40 kilometers, but as we speak now, it's less than 10 kilometers.
Should the lakes merge, Lake Bogoria's saltwater ecosystem could contaminate Lake Baringo's freshwater one. The ecological consequences will be felt in these parts for years to come.
The whole ecosystem will change to be fresh, to alkalinity, because the pH of this lake is around 10.5, and then the other one is around 7.8.
Certain plant species would disappear, along with marine life, birds, and animals that depend on the freshwater lake. From a distance, the warden can still see his first office, almost submerged. Recently, he's been forced to give up his second office, which is slowly being engulfed by the lake. Back at Lake Baringo, Roberts believes he may have a solution.
Further north, there is a possibility to build a canal, an outlet.
Until a solution is found, those that live by the lake may be forced to move to higher ground. Robert Nakila, CGTN, Baringo, Kenya.
You're watching Africa Live. Still ahead on the program, we highlight the pain of Mauritius fishermen after a devastating oil spill. And Kenyan beach operators feel the pinch as COVID-19 keeps tourists away.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself? If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Oil spills from the MV Wakasho shipwreck is considered the worst environmental disaster to strike Mauritius. For local fishermen, this is the latest blow in a string of challenges that is threatening their traditional way of life. CGTN's Liu Feifei has the story.
Maibog is a small fishing village that sits about 2.5 kilometers from the shipwreck. On any given day when weather permits, you're sure to find many artisanal fishermen trying to catch some fish, to bring home for the family meal or to sell at the local markets. Here we met up with Deepnaren Harlal, a local fisherman.
I have been a fisherman for 40 years. I learned the skill from my father. The ocean has less and less fish in it right now. There was the coronavirus, then we could not fish, but the government paid me. It's okay, but the people without the license, they do not get anything. Now we just wait. I do not know what will happen. My son will not be a fisherman like me.
Deep Naren can afford to wait because he's a licensed fisherman. This hard-to-come-by fishing license is worth more than its weight in gold. A licensed fisherman is entitled to a bad weather allowance of $8.50 per day. They also received government subsidies during the COVID-19 lockdown, and now he'll receive about $250 per month while all water activities are banned. Currently, there are about 2,000 licensed artisanal fishermen in Mauritius, but many more are unlicensed and thus not entitled to government financial assistance. Maureen Zwele is an unlicensed fisherman who has had to find another job.
I learned how to fish from my father. I have been fishing all my life, but it's really difficult to get a license. I have been trying for decades. Because I was not allowed to fish for 3 months this year, I have had to get a second job. Now I make tombstones for the local cemetery. It's a hard job, but I have to survive.
Artisanal fishing is steadily on the decline, and the Wakasho disaster may prove to be the last straw that broke the camel's back, particularly for those fishermen who are unlicensed.
The plight of the fishermen is not unique in Mauritius. The government has just issued an indefinite ban on all water-related activities along much of the East Coast. And so, the fishermen, the boat skippers, the fishmongers, and tour operators, big and small, remain like the empty fishing boats you see behind me, idle and waiting. Liu Feifei, CGTN, Myburg, Mauritius.
The COVID-19 pandemic has devastated tourism industries across the world. The Kenyan coastal city of Mombasa, people who provide beach services are among those adversely affected. CGTN's Enoch Sikolia reports.
For 4 months now, the pandemic storm has been sweeping the Kenyan coastal city of Mombasa. It swept sunseekers off the coastal line, and with it, tourists and nearly everything associated with tourism. Birds have taken over the seashore, a void left after COVID-19 left tourists confined in their countries and counties. So what happens when no one goes to the beach?
I prefer holding on to what I love. I love the sea. The sea is my life.
So you want to tell me that your life has drastically changed?
It has been hard, from food, even income.
This is the story of beach boys, men whose livelihoods entirely depends on the ocean and what it drags along. A story of how COVID-19 crossed the oceans and the land beyond to disrupt their lives and what the new norm presents to them. After 4 months of staying at home, doing nothing, Said Suleimani and his team are slowly coming back to Pirate Public Beach. This is where their bread is buttered. Today is a lucky day for them. They have got 2 local tourists keen on a boat ride into the deep sea. The county government of Mombasa has continued to prohibit public access to this iconic coastline. The fear is overcrowding at the seashore could lead to the virus spreading further in the local population.
Our president said we should protect ourselves. But police officers have been harassing us, plus a few visitors who have been coming to experience the beach. They have been asking for bribes.
Indeed, the 3 months of travel restrictions left a mark all over the island of Mombasa.
I feel lonely. I feel like a ghost. The emptiness here is shocking. I have never seen this since I was born.
Abdul Razak Ahmed rents floaters and tubes for swimming to those who flock Pirates Beach. For him, a beach without people means his pockets remain empty. He talks about the stigma they face and which is associated with the bad reputation of some beach boys.
We are discriminated even in the estates, and even when jobs come by, we can't be offered. So it's been hard, but we thank God for the life He has given us.
Said Suleiman says his marriage has crumbled due to the recent problems. Unending conflicts with his wife forced him to flee his matrimonial home. Enoch Sikolia, CGTN, Mombasa, Kenya.
And still in Kenya, it has been a steep learning curve for ordinary citizens during the COVID-19 pandemic. Their lives and work has been adversely affected during the lockdown restrictions. Many are now required to implement measures aimed at reducing exposure to the virus.
This is a struggle, but we have to make sure that even it forced me even to shift. So I was staying. Then I go to the cheapest house. I thought maybe I can afford it, but even it's cheapest, but I'm still struggling.
But the new normal now says that I have to book an appointment. I have to call my guy a day before, or even hours before. Can come into the salon to get my hair done. Unlike those days when anytime I felt like cutting my hair, I just walk in. But it's been now put in the sense that you book an appointment due to the virus because of the social distancing. Number 2, because of the restrictions put by the Ministry of Health that we have to comply.
There are no clients. Business is very slow. We get one, let's say we are getting like half of what we used to get before. And then secondly, you see, like before the COVID came, I had like 3 boys who were working for me. Now I've been forced to even reduce. I'm left with only 1. so as you can also manage what you're having.
And we begin your sport in Lisbon, where Bayern Munich is all set to take on their final